Hey guys, Boone down south. I don't know if y'all can hear me well enough. We got a lot of wind today for some reason. But today, this is going to be a little bit of a controversial video that I'm putting out. But before we get into that, this will be the first time I'm going to do a giveaway. Okay? We've got this Plusino camo hunting backpack right here. It's tons of zippers and pouches and pockets. It's got a nice waist belt on it with more pouches up here. Chest strap. It opens up with more zipper compartments inside. Even for saddle hunters, you can probably hang stuff back here. This opens up down here. It has a whole rainproof cover for the backpack. It's probably like a $60 value. This is brand new, and we're gonna ship this out to the winner of this contest we're gonna do. To enter the contest, all you need to do is leave a comment and leave the word backpack. Put backpack in all uppercase, it's one word, backpack. And on Black Friday, we're gonna go through and use a comment picker to search through the comments and pick a winner for us. And it'll be, Black Friday's got good weather coming, so I'm gonna hunt that morning, hopefully. And when I get done hunting that day, or that morning rather, midday is when we'll do the drawing and we'll do a video to pick that winner. This is just open for continental US, and we'll get this backpack out to you, to the winner. All right, so as far as this video today, guys, today I wanna address the folks that are out there, they're just anti-crossbow. They don't like crossbows, they have a disdain for crossbow hunters. They really have a beef with crossbows and archery is the main beef, although I get comments all the time while I'm hunting my crossbow during rifle season, why I'm not, why I'm using a crossbow. So anyway, just kind of want to address that. I want to look at their arguments, and we're going to look at some statistics to show that their arguments really don't hold water, guys. So stick around, hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget to enter the contest. Black Friday will be the drawing. I want to talk about this idea, these people that just hate crossbows and they have a disdain for crossbow hunters. And the reason I'm bringing that up, because I've had so many comments over the years and on my crossbow videos. You know, I'll do a hunt, it clearly says crossbow on the title, and I have somebody post, hey man, you used a crossbow, man, is there a reason you're not using a compound bow? You know, it's like, A, it's none of your business why I'm using a crossbow. If it's legal and I'm taking ethical shots and I'm enjoying my hunting with a crossbow, it's none of your business, okay? Whether I'm disabled or not, or whether I'm injured or not. I'll see comments about, oh yeah, you're just a lazy crossbow hunter. You know, all this stuff. And the ironic thing, they clicked on a video on YouTube that has crossbow in the title, yet they hate crossbows, okay? So anyway, I get lots of these comments like that. They're just ignorant. I want to address these issues because really what it comes down to, guys, is the people that have this attitude is, number one, they're ignorant, they are selfish, and they're also elitist. And we're going to look at those three things. All right, first I want to give you some background, my background. Been hunting since I was 12 years old. When I was 16, I really had this bug to try archery out. Hunted, I didn't know anybody shot a bow. And back then, you know, you had those big old Bass Pro Shop catalogs. And so I saved up some money and I bought a Bear Whitetail Hunter kit, which means it came with the arrows, quiver, glove, all that kind of stuff, arm guard. So since then, I went to a Martin Lynx, I went to a PSE, I went to a Jennings Aerostar, and a Buckmaster, finally a Matthews DXT, and that spans like 30-something years worth of archery. And at that point, I started having some problems with my shoulders, and that was about 6-7 years ago now, and I mainly hunt with a crossbow at this point in time. But I've been in the archery world for years. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen all the arguments, these same arguments about why we can't use a crossbow in archery season, and the disdain for crossbows. It's the same thing that went on in the past, right? The days of recurves and longbows, compounds came out, there was the argument, hey, it's too easy. And then once compounds started developing and, you know, higher let-offs instead of the, you know, initially it came out around 50% let-off, and then we started getting the 65 and 70% let-offs, and, you know, now 85% let-offs, and then they shouldn't be allowed in Pope and Young, you know, all this stuff, right? These same arguments hold true, and the reality is, guys, in the hunting community, we need to be embracing what everybody wants to hunt with as long as it's legal. And as long as we're doing things legally and ethically, we need to embrace it because we need to grow the hunting community, not fight amongst ourselves, which is really what's happening, right? So that's really kind of what I want to talk about here, guys. But I've got the background. I've seen all these arguments before, and this crossbow argument is no different than all the other arguments happened in the past. First, I want to take a look at their argument, and they're based on what I feel are three things. And so the selfishness factor. So I was there when I was younger. You know, at the time, what I had access to was public land in Florida, and public land in Florida, quite honestly, Florida is not a mecca of deer hunting by any stretch of the imagination. And the thought back then was, I don't want them to legalize crossbows for archery season because that means more people be hunting the land that I have access to, because I've got exclusive access with a select group of people that have put the time and energy and effort into crafting their skill in archery to be able to hunt this land. And that's a selfish factor, number one, because I was selfish. I didn't want to have to share that public land with everybody. Well, the fact is, it's not my land. It's not your land. It's the public's land. You know, our tax dollars pay for that. The states manage that stuff to give access to people, right? And then there's the elitist factor. Hey, you know, I spent time practicing to get good at this. These guys grab a crossbow and they don't spend enough time, and it's not right because I'm better, right? That's the attitude. I'm elitist. I'm better because I put more time into stuff. And you know, look, I was ignorant in those days, and hopefully I'm a little wiser now that I've grown older and I've got the greater proof. I've come to the realization that, hey, first of all, you know, it's not my deer, it's not my land. Deer are a renewable resource, right? And the states have to manage it for that. These are the same type of comments that I see today, and so I understand where they come from, because, like I said, I was there. And the reality is this crossbow has been the biggest differentiator in introducing new people to the sport. You know, all these arguments that they make is things like, somebody said, hey, we got into a little bit on comments, and hey, I never can kill a mature deer now because there's all these crossbow hunters out here. Well, that's not what the stats show. And so, all right, guys, if you go to deerfriendly.com, you can go down and pull down by state right here, and you can look at the different deer populations. And a lot of these states will have the first paragraph going back to maybe like the year 2000, and sometimes on the right you'll see a chart depicting this. But if we look at Pennsylvania opened up crossbows in 2009 for all seasons. And if you look at these numbers here, their 2024 estimate is 1.5 million. And you can kind of go through where this was, about 1.5 million in 2017. It was up from 1.4 million in 2015, 1.3 in 2014. As we go back, and you can see in 2010, they had, or rather 2000, it was around 1.5. So you've seen negligible difference here in Pennsylvania, post and pre crossbows being legal in Pennsylvania. Let's take a look at, let's go down to, let's do Missouri. So crossbows were legalized in 2016 in Missouri. And if you start looking at these numbers, it looks like there was 1.2 million in 2015. It went up to 1.4 million in 2018 and 19. And it looks like for 2024 was 1.7 million. So that deer population has increased. And again, we don't know all the different underlying factors, but you can definitely say that crossbows being introduced in Missouri did not have an impact here. Let's take a look at, Ohio. In Ohio, now, they're looking at about 800,000 in 2025. As we kind of scroll back through the article, you can see in 2018, there was 660,000. Pretty stable to modestly increase in 2018 to 2021, 660 in 2015 here we see. And if you kind of scroll back, we had 750 to 8,000 in 2006 and early 2000s. So first of all, Ohio has opened up crossbows. I think like in 76 was limited, but 84 is when they went crossbows full on. And so, I don't have a pre-84 numbers, but you can look for the last 25 years, Ohio's deer herd has been stable, okay? So crossbows have not had an impact on its numbers. And that's a state that has a lot of crossbow hunters. And I'll put down my state of South Carolina. And you're going to see some states that have gone down when you go through here. And South Carolina is one of those. If you look back in 2000, we had 1 to 1.2 million deer. And now we're at 700,000. Now, South Carolina opened crossbows in 2008. And really what's been happening is probably since 2016 or so, we have been trending downward slightly, from 725, 730 down to 700,000. Again, that number 30,000 difference is very negligible, but they do notice that we've had habitat change, coyote predation. Hurricane Matthew hit part of the state. And also I do know in this case, the DNR has been trying to manage that population herd and bring the numbers down just based on carrying capacity of the land. So you can look at this through this, but basically the conclusion here is that crossbows have not been affecting deer numbers at all. So now let's look at the argument about, hey, it's just like a rifle. I hear that argument all the time. And let's just put this out there to start with. Is shooting a crossbow easier than a compound bow? Absolutely. There's no question. It doesn't require as much skill. Hands down. It takes skill to be able to practice that compound bow and hit the target consistently and be able to draw. That's a lot of movement with a deer at 20 yards from you, okay? Especially if there's multiple deer, right? And eyes are popping all over the place, and you got to make a lot of movement. Sometimes you got to stand up and draw depending on where they're at. So there's a lot of movement that goes on in archery that you don't have with a rifle or a crossbow. So yes, there's more skill involved in a compound bow. It takes a lot more movement with the animal right there. So there's no question about that aspect of it. With a crossbow, you hold it like a rifle, you pull the trigger like a rifle, and the movement's about the same as a rifle. That's where it ends. That's where the comparison ends. When you're shooting a bullet, you're shooting at 2,000 plus feet per second. You got a bullet that has rapid expansion that blows through whatever it hits. It hits the shoulder bone, it's going down, right? Typically that shoulder bone drop a deer, it's going to blast through. Most of the time it's going to go through both sides, depending on bullet, blunt trauma that kills the animal. When you're hunting with a crossbow, you're still using a blade. You're doing blood loss. That's how you kill the animal, is based on blood loss. You're looking for mass hemorrhaging. So you have to think about things the same way an archer thinks about things. You have to think about your shot placement. You have to think about the angle. You just can't put it on the front shoulder and pull the trigger. You may, probably may glance off that bone. It may wedge into the bone. The deer's run around with a bone, a bolt or an arrow sticking out his leg, if you will. You have to think just like an archer, because even though your speeds are a little bit faster than a compound bow, they're not a whole lot faster. They're nowhere near the rifle speed. And so you have to think about your entry hole, your exit hole, where that arrow is going to pass through. These are things you don't have to really think about with a rifle as much, right? Shot placement and accuracy is still very important in all weapons, but you really got to think about, I can't hit that bone. I don't want to hit that bone. I have to wait for that front shoulder to come forward. I need to wait till it's quartering away. There's shots you can take with a rifle to take them down that you don't want to take that chance with a crossbow. Just like a compound bow, you're looking for a high percentage shot. And so you're thinking about shot placement. You need to put that arrow in and out. You need to make sure that when it goes in, it's going to come out, so you got a good blood trail. And these are some things you have to think about. And so you're still very limited. A deer can still jump the string with a crossbow. I've had it happen. I had one at 20 yards last year. He dropped on me enough. I went back and watched the video in slow motion because I thought I made a bad shot. And it ended up going just below his spine. And he dropped on a spot and went down and started spinning. And what happened, as soon as I pulled the trigger, his body started to lower. And of course, my angle was good because I was up pretty high. My angle came in and went down to the vitals, and he expired probably within 20 seconds. But it kind of shocked me how high the arrow went in, but it was based on the drop. So they can jump the string. I've got my new Raven LR, and that thing is touted to shoot 3-inch groups at 135 yards. And there's a number of videos of people doing that. And groups amazing at 100 yards. That doesn't mean I need to be shooting animals in the woods that far. That's the argument, right? Is it the crossbow's more like a rifle? I can shoot a lot farther. Well, here's the reality. You start pushing that crossbow out there, it's the same with archery, guys. You still have an arc projectile that's going on. And if, like my Raven LR, 450 feet a second, 20 and 30, there's not a whole lot of trajectory drop. It starts to drop at 40, and then 50 and 60 starts to drop faster and faster and faster. You don't have that with a bullet. That bullet might have this much drop over 100 yards, right? That much, maybe this much at 200 yards. So you're still within that, that 6-inch window, if you will, for an animal out to 200 yards with a rifle. You don't have that with a compound. You got to know your range. You don't have to know that with a rifle. It's not like a bullet like this. It is arrows coming down. When you're in the woods, especially on the eastern side of the U.S. where it's a very wooded environment, I'm not talking about shooting over food plots, but you're in this wooded environment. Once you get much beyond 40 yards, you can't see things like little vines and little twigs and whatnot. And like I said, I spent most of my time shooting a compound bow. And one of the things I do on the morning hunt, every time I hunted, I'm in a tree stand. When it's time to get down, I always carried one arrow with a field point. I'd put that arrow on, and I'd look down at the ground. I'd find a leaf, I'd draw back, and I'd shoot from the stand. And I will tell you, there are on several occasions where I picked a leaf and I shot, I missed it, and I missed it bad because it was like a little vine that I couldn't see, and it deflected. That's when I started to realize, out to a certain distance, you can only see so good in a wooded environment to not be able to see that little branch that didn't have leaves on it, that you didn't see a little twig coming out. And those things deflect an arrow. And so you have those same issues. So just because it can shoot 3-inch groups at 135 yards doesn't mean you should shoot that far. So again, it's more like archery than it is like a rifle, okay, when it comes outside of just holding the thing. And you have to think through all those things. And the idea that it's just like a rifle, really, I think is an area, that's a whole nother video we need to talk about, because when I started doing the research on this video, the recovery rate on crossbows is not near as what I thought it would be. In fact, here's the spoiler. It's not much better than a compound bow and recurve bow. That's the reality of it. And I think that has to do that this idea that's propagated that, hey, it's just like a rifle, it's easy, sight, forget it, and come out and shoot. And people new to the sport don't think in an archery mindset. Maybe they hit the bone, I don't know, but the recovery rate is nowhere close to a rifle recovery rate with a crossbow. That'll be a whole nother video, I think, to talk about. But so that's where it's at. So that argument just goes to pot. Crossbows are bringing new people in the sport, which is what we want. We want a better hunting community, a larger hunting community, not a dwindling hunting community. If we look at some of these stats here, in Minnesota, once they lifted crossbow restrictions in 2023, female youth hunters surged 43% in archery deer season. 43%, guys. That's a lot of youth female hunters that came in to the sport. They could be, taking on a new lifelong passion. In Michigan in 2013, their DNR study said that crossbows could boost archery numbers by 10 to 20%. In New York, they did a 2019 hunter survey. It said 61% of non-owners would buy a crossbow if it was fully legal. So really what it comes down to it is crossbows have done more for the hunting recruitment in 20 years than anything else out there. More people get into the sport. That means there's more support for the sport. So guys, you can go look at the National Deer Association Interactive Deer Report. They'll let you pull up all kind of graphs by state going back 10 to 20 plus years. And what you're going to find out that the numbers that you show up, the harvest, they're either up or they're stable in crossbow inclusive states. There's, no wipe out of the herd. Archery numbers are slightly higher. Everything's been manageable. Alabama, 59% in Alabama, 59% of their bucks were 3.5 years old. That's pretty good. So your bigger bucks are getting there. In Wisconsin, you actually saw a 5.2% increase in the gun harvest. So, you're seeing like 4.9% up in archery, things like that. You're seeing some increases in the take during archery season specifically, but you are seeing stable herds. You're seeing even Ohio recording big bucks. Kentucky's continuing to bring in big bucks that are going in the record books. Ohio had a record number of those last year, it looks like. And so you're still seeing that stuff. So basically the data just doesn't prove the idea that the crossbow hunters are just taking out all these deer. That mindset of this crossbow hunter being this lazy guy, everybody hunts for different reasons. Everybody doesn't hunt for a trophy. Some people hunt for meat. Some people hunt for whatever. They just want the thrill of bagging a deer. And it doesn't matter if it's a rifle, crossbow, compound bow, but, compound bows take a lot of work and effort. They do. Not everybody's got that time. When I was younger, I had the time. People don't have that time. I was fortunate I had time. But you take a guy who loves to hunt, grew up hunting, but now he's working. He's working 2 jobs maybe. He's got a family of kids out there. Maybe he's taking care of elderly parents. You don't know what situations are going on, but he's busy. He doesn't have that time to spend 20, 30 minutes every other day, shooting his compound bow. He only has so many days that he can hunt. And maybe he can only hunt 4 days a year, and maybe a day here, a day there. By opening him access into archery season with a crossbow, it means he doesn't have to spend as much time practicing, but it also maybe gives him an extra day he can hunt in archery season. That's giving him access, guys. That's what we want. We want to support people in the sport. Everybody's not the same. And so we shouldn't be downing this person because, I got a buddy. He's got 5 kids. He works a lot. He doesn't have the time to shoot a compound bow. And that crossbow gives him the ability to get out there and hunt. And really, he wants to shoot whatever because he wants to harvest deer. He wants to take his kids hunting. His kids can shoot that crossbow. He's introduced them to sport because, he's got him out there at a young age, 8 years old, harvesting with a crossbow. You can't do that with a compound bow. Everybody hunts for different reasons. Everybody gets different enjoyment out of it. It's not always about the trophy, guys. Sometimes, that little 4-point will make somebody super happy because that may be the only deer they're going to see because they only have 3 days a year to hunt. You can't go out and, I'm only going to kill 150-inch deer. First of all, you got to live where there's 150-inch deer. You got to be able to hunt where there's 150-inch deer. All right, guys, I think we kind of went through a number of things to show statistically why crossbows are really not having a negative impact out there. Are they putting more people in archery season? Yeah, they are doing that. But, let's face it, they're killing it in archery season or not getting it in gun season. A lot of these one-buck-only states, like Ohio, for instance, right? Pennsylvania, for instance. So it's just shifting when a deer gets killed. It's not really impacting the herd at all. It's not having a negative impact on deer numbers. It's not having an impact on mature deer. And really what it does is these crossbows give people opportunities. And that's really what we want, guys. We want opportunities for the people that are out there who love to hunt. Not everybody is as fortunate as I am and some of you that have many, many days each year we can hunt, have the ability to go to different states to hunt. A lot of guys are really limited, and the crossbow just opens that up for them, and I think that's a good thing. So anyway, I know it's very controversial, guys. Feel free to leave me comments on what you think. But anyway, also don't forget about the drawing for the Plusino backpack. So put in the words backpack in all uppercase in the comment, and that drawing will be on Black Friday. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time.